This week on Quality Digest Live, we chat with Nicole of Intellects about Quality 4.0 and data science.
That's right, plus the 3 principles of strategic planning. That more when we come back.
Today's episode of Quality Digest Live is sponsored by Olympus Vanta XRF Analyzers. Fast material identification for safer products.
And welcome back to Quality Digest Live for October 12th, 2018. QDL is your weekly look at who and what is making the news in the world of quality. I'm Mike Richmond, publisher of Quality Digest.
And I'm Quality Digest Editor-in-Chief, Dirk Ducharme. You know, it's pretty amazing how many tools are available now for the manufacturing floor that make our day-to-day work easier. There are some really high-tech tools that some of you are familiar with, like virtual reality, or probably even more useful, I think, augmented reality, which help users to easily learn tasks or to maybe augment those tasks with some computer assistance. But lost in all the hype of those super gee whiz tools like AR and AI and VR are a class of tools that have been around for a while and continue to get better, and that don't get talked about a whole lot, I don't think, anymore. And that is software tools that simply integrate the ubiquitous tablet or cell phone onto the shop floor to bring usually visual instructions to our fingertips. Right. So we all walk around with a cell phone or a tablet or sometimes both. And more we're seeing, software companies develop software that says, well, let's make use of these. I mean, everybody has them. Why shouldn't they be using them as part of their shop floor experience and what they do on the shop floor? So we had a good case study this week about how one company, CMP Advanced Mechanical Solutions, used visual work instruction software called VKS to streamline their inspection process. The article was Applying Smart Manufacturing Technology to Conduct Smart Inspections, which kind of says it all. It was written by Sylvie Couture. If you aren't familiar with visual work instruction software, but I imagine most of you are, it allows companies to both capture and share important processes on their mobile devices. And because it's electronic, instructions can be updated in real time, unlike, paper documents. So operators have access to the most recent documents. So, I mean, for a person like me who came from manufacturing floor before the days of computers, it really was a process. If there was a document change order or an engineering change order, the documents would be updated on paper by the document control department. Then somebody had to, or every department head had to go out, find the relevant document, shred it to make sure it's no longer in the loop, and then we're issued then a new paper document. And sometimes they didn't get shredded, so sometimes you'd have 2 copies of a document, and somebody would have to notice, oh, this was Rev 3, right. Oh, we're supposed to be on Rev 4, oh, what is this doing out here? And
sometimes people would just write over Rev 3.
Or they would, exactly.
First Rev 3, 4, and make the changes.
Well, so now you see the advantage of handling documents electronically, and also onto your mobile device. You don't have to be at a laptop to read the document. You bring up your phone or your tablet, and now you've got the latest process or procedure. Now, in addition to guiding operators with visual instructions on their mobile device, the software can also be used to gather live data from the shop floor. And it's a really interesting case study. I recommend you read it, but some of the highlights that I think we can all related to this is that you can have your company's entire library of processes and procedures at your fingertips, updated in real time, so you carry it around with you. When you pull up a procedure, as long as you're synced to the company's computer, you know that you have the latest version. Also, the software can even help you step through a process. We see that more and more. Let's say help step you through an inspection process, for instance. And also, it will, because of all these things, it's going to markedly increase productivity. One of the things they talk about in this article is for one inspection process they do, it's a really fairly thick manual, probably not that thick, but let's say a thick manual, lots and lots of pages in it.
Sure.
And so you got to bring out the manual, got to find a desk to set it on, you got to flip through it, finding what you want. But meanwhile, you're trying to inspect something. So, you've got this paper document, this manual, and so it's awkward, right? So now you have your tablet, you scroll through it. This is the step I'm on right now. You do that step, you scroll to the next one, you move around to the other side. I mean, it's just very handy, and that helps increase productivity. So check out the article. There's a good explanation of how CMP uses virtual work instruction for inspection. So I think you'll like the article. It's a good case study.
Yeah, and this is a real world situation. I mean, it's one where you're talking about efficiency and being more efficient on the shop floor. Those extra steps you have to go through to make sure that you do know the right document you're working off of and that you have the right work instruction is pretty critical. I mean, you can waste a lot of time trying to walk around and find the right piece of documentation if it's not done in a certain way.
That's the other thing is you have an inspection station and somebody's moved the manual. So now you got to do, where's the binder, right?
Right. Yeah,
Exactly.
so it's a much more efficient way of doing that.
Yep.
Really, really good idea, really good use of the technology. All right. Well, let's talk about weirdness, Dirk.
Okay.
Let's talk about weird,
got the right
crazy
people.
stuff, I got the right guy here to talk about that.
Exactly.
We're going to talk about the world of genomics, right? And it's a fascinating thing, even if you're not I'm not a scientist, but I mean, just reading this stuff is just incredible. I mean, it's mind-bending. It's strange, really, if you think about it. And it's about to get a lot stranger still. And I want to give a hat tip here to QDL fan Al Metzel, who's probably watching right now.
Hey, Al.
Hey, Al. For forwarding us the article, Biotech CEO, Genomics World to Get a Lot Weirder, which appeared earlier this week in the Laboratory Equipment website, or on the Laboratory Equipment website. The jumping off point here for the story was a keynote given by Andrew Hessel, and he's the CEO of the biotechnology company Humane Genomics at last month's International Symposium for Human Identification. His talk was titled The Golden Age of Genomics, but he quickly corrected that, and I quote, he said in his address, "We're not in the golden age of genomics," he said. "We're just getting started today. It's going to get a lot weirder." It's a direct quote. A lot weirder. That's a direct,
weird now?
Direct quote from his keynote. It's going to get a lot weirder. So how weird is weird? How much weirder are we going to get than where we are right now with genomics? Well, synthetic life forms are already here. I mean, as he states, and many of you probably know this, I didn't really realize that this was going on to this degree. Yeast genomes,
Oh, okay.
right, can now be created, or written is the term that they use in this industry, for a couple $1,000,000. You can write a yeast genome.
Wow, it's
worth.
in case you need a new yeast. Well,
But you know what?
Some industries probably do.
Do.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
it's worth a lot of money. He talks about this actually as an aside. He talks about this within the framework. He's the CEO of a genomics company. He talks about this in the framework of the amount of money invested versus a return from a business perspective. So, yeah, new yeast genome is worth something. I mean, it costs a few $1,000,000 to design it, to write it. There's a payoff there. Human genomes now could feasibly be written as well, maybe for upwards of $1,000,000,000, from what Hessel said in his thing. Biology app stores could happen. You just could download your little app right in this world. Virus hacking, very specific virus hacking, can happen here as well. He talks about it from the perspective of that you could potentially have a virus, a germ that's designed not necessarily, although it's possible, but not necessarily for a broad group of population for millions and millions of people, but you could target a gene, target a germ for one person, like one person in the White House, maybe. I mean,
right.
You could launch that into the world that could make people really ill. I mean, there's a lot of ethical questions around this. I mean, Hessel says that we're at the cusp really of artificial life, that we could create life forms, and that human life is just a more complex, very much more complex than yeast. I mean, you could get to that point. It's really more of a matter of investing, how much you want to invest in that, what the return on that's going to be. But again, there's ethical issues. Al alluded to some ethical issues when he wrote to us to kind of call our attention to this. It's like, there's ways you could design, genes to not only to improve your life or your appearance or whatever, but to give some people an immunity to certain illnesses and others not, if you can't afford it. I mean, maybe. There could be more of a schism between you can be as healthy as you can afford to be, maybe with this type of very focused, genetic information. It's a scare. It could be scary. Hassel says in this thing that it won't be scary. He's a businessman. That it's going to unlock a new golden age of humanity to be able to do this. He kind of downplays the scary part of it, but there's scary parts of this too.
Because it's his company.
Right.
Well, here's the thing that interests me about in any story I read, I try to look at what is the quality angle in it, and there is. 30 years ago, 40 years ago, maybe even 20 years ago, we still kind of defined quality in terms of inspection, right? And obviously that's broadened out, and even 20 years ago, the idea was, quality is what does the customer need or what does the customer want? When you start looking at it from that perspective, then quality is in everything, including genomics, because he has a genomics company. Right? And there's plenty of genomics companies out there. They have an audience. They have a customer. What are you going to give that customer? And just because the customer wants it, should you develop it? So you might be giving the customer what they want, but is it ethical to do that? So now you have the question of, conformance to specifications or what the customer requires. Well, sometimes what the customer requires may not be something that you want to invent. And even if you think you do want to invent it, I think when we start to get to some technologies, and actually we're going to be talking about technology here in just about 4 or 5 minutes, it doesn't matter what the technology is, whether it's genomics or data or the Internet of Things or whatever, there is always an ethical side to it that we as people who work in the quality field have to consider, because now when you look at everything from the perspective of delivering what a customer wants, you really have to ask whether you really want to develop a product, even if it's a perfect product, that perfectly delivers something that maybe should not be out there.
Well, it's akin to the idea of negative liberty or positive liberty, right? This idea that you can use quality, you can use developments of things to let people have whatever they want, but there needs to also be an idea that you're gonna have quality and have guardrails in place to also protect people from anything that they want, because people aren't always the best arbiters of what's in their best interest, or certainly the best interest in the future of the planet or of the species. So I mean, you have to be weighing all those things very strategically, and in any product.
Well, and I think it's also, I think it is, and genomics is the case, and Hessel alludes to this, is that everything is a tool. Every product is a tool. So even if there is a negative use for it, and obviously for genomics there can be some very negative uses for it, it is just a tool. So what safeguards do you put in place, whether it's legal safeguards or technical safeguards or whatever, to prevent or mitigate a tool being used in a way that is detrimental to society or detrimental to the customer? So I think also we got to remember, an invention itself isn't necessarily bad. It's how it's used that can be bad. And then so that's then as the developer, it's your responsibility to try to look at the risk end of that and mitigate against.
And this isn't something that's a now issue necessarily, or even a future issue. I mean, this has been going on since the advent of technology. Is the benefits and the possible risks of these various technologies, and it's a constant question you have to ask. And people will say, well, you don't want too much regulation. Well, you need some regulation. You need to regulate some things. You need to prevent people from taking it too far. What is too far? Well, everybody's going to define that a little bit differently too.
And that'll change culturally and societally.
It does too. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Well, speaking of technology. Speaking of technology.
Well, the question is why is technology important? Why is technology important?
Okay, that's what I was getting to. Why is technology? And that was really kind of what I was trying to get to on this, is why do we care about articles that are really kind of off in the fringe? And I think the reason we care is because as quality people, we can frame it in a way that actually kind of opens up a broader discussion that actually relates to our field.
Right.
Which is kind of like why we like when people send us, like Alan sent us this. So.
Yeah, exactly right.
Okay, well.
Good.
Okay.
So-
Okay. Well, I was going to say, we're getting short on time. I want to get our next guest in.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about things like Industry 4.0 and cyber physical systems and artificial intelligence and machine learning and deep learning and business intelligence and data science and big data and quality 4.0 and I could go on and on. And these we're buried in buzzwords, right? I mean, there's so many that we tend to tune them out. Maybe if I ignore them, they won't see me, right? I'm just like, I don't know what big data is. I'm not even going to pay attention to it. The thing is, all these terms, all these tech terms, do refer to a revolution that is occurring in industry right now, today. You can't ignore them. Even though you're inundated by them, you may not know what they mean, you do have to kind of pay attention. How are all these items, all these terms related? How does this technology support quality and process improvements? And not just for big companies with big IT staffs, but for companies of all sizes. The cornerstone to all of this is data. Collecting and storing data is easy, but using it to generate useful insights can be a bit more of a challenge, especially in quality, which often requires substantial expertise in hands-on experience with products and processes. So how do you introduce new technologies to generate insights and create value in your organization in a way that makes sense for your company? That means economic sense as well. So joining us today, we're happy to have Nicole Sewell, Quality Practice Leader at Intellex, and also a Fellow of the American Society for Quality and an editor of Software Quality Professional. She's also the author of the article this week, Your Data Are Your Most Valuable Assets. Nicole, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Mike. Hi, Dirk.
Hey, how are you, Nicole?
Great.
Thanks for being with us today. So before we get too far into this, maybe you can just give us a basic definition of terms. So when we say quality 4.0, what are we really talking about? Just to frame it properly for the audience.
What the heck is that?
Yeah.
Okay, I have a really easy conceptual foundation, a really easy way for everybody to remember what quality 4.0 is. And that is connectedness, intelligence, and automation for performance. So CIA, connectedness, intelligence, and automation for performance. That's it. The practice of quality, it's all about meeting requirements, making things fit for use, making products and processes easier, better, faster, cheaper, like Shingo said. We also do things like reduce costs, reduce risks. We like to get rid of anything that's bad or unnecessary or not value adding. So, that part doesn't change. We still have the same goals, and we're still going to have the same goals. We want to collectively in our organizations learn how to do things better and then how to make that happen over and over again. But now with Industry 4.0, we have systems and technologies that can amplify those efforts, that can bring us breakthrough innovation. So to dive in a little bit deeper into CI&A, number one is connectedness. So internet connected devices and people, Google, Internet of Things, industrial IoT. We've now got ways for people to talk to each other, for people to talk to things and machines, and also for the things and machines to talk to each other. In the past, I've called this connectivity, and that's true. But what's really important about connectivity, particularly having internet connectivity to people and things, is that it brings those people and machines and data sources together. And wearables, implantables, that's kind of scary, but it's also on the research horizon. Connected homes, connected offices, smart cities, that's what's coming up next in terms of connectedness. So the second thing is intelligence. Using that information that the people and the machines produce to make decisions, to reveal insights, to uncover the things that are hidden. And that's where artificial intelligence and machine learning come in. You use them for decision support. You see them implemented in tools like chatbots or recommendation systems or even spam filtering. I bet everyone benefits from a spam filter in their email box every day. And, it's become commonplace. You kind of expect that sort of thing. And also, you guys mentioned genomics. And that's also an important element of this whole puzzle, because if you think about it, genomics will give us the intelligence that we need to better control and refine biological processes. So it is really tightly connected to quality. And then the third thing is automation. So most people think of industrial robotics, but also software-based process automation is important. And when you blend automation and intelligence together, you find that things kind of perform better, and they do things on their own. And so it reduces the amount of work, the burden on the humans in the processes. So with automation, humans are being taken out of the loop, and sometimes that's good, and sometimes that has some consequences. So, driverless cars, even neurotechnology. So this is a really interesting thing. Right now, some auto manufacturers are exploring how to monitor the alertness of the drivers to try and make things safer, between now and the time that we do have the driverless cars. So that's kind of interesting. The bottom line is that quality is all about achieving performance requirements, improving that performance, building capabilities, increasing resilience. These are all of the same goals that we've had forever. I started getting into data science and machine learning that has become Quality 4.0 about 15 years ago. We had a task that we had to take care of, how to distinguish good data from bad data. And unfortunately, it was impossible for humans to do it manually or to keep up with the data volume on a regular basis. So, we coded up some neural networks. It only took about 9 months. Now the same thing would take maybe 15 minutes. And we had to run it on a really powerful and really expensive computer. But, times have changed, and that's good for all of us. I mean, we aren't limited by the infrastructure anymore. We have lots of open source software packages out there so that we don't have to spend 9 months coding this functionality. So, when I was introduced to these things in the context of how you could use it for quality, I saw the value in it, so I kept up with it. I ended up teaching applied machine learning in an interdisciplinary applied science program. Did that for about a decade, but now I'm at Intellex. Intellex is a software company. It takes care of the bread and butter, the core tasks of quality management, and also environment and health and safety. And Intellex is committed to innovation and quality, and that's one of the reasons that I'm really excited to be on this ride and to be a part of it, because we get to think about, how do we make Quality 4.0 real for everyone? How do we drive value? I've heard some people say that Quality 4.0 is just a new approach to manufacturing, and that's okay, but I don't think it's really new at all. I think it's been happening now for about 20 years. What we're seeing now is the convergence of problems.
Oh, did we lose it, Nicole?
I think we lost Nicole there for a little bit while we tried to get her back. She said something. I really liked her Quality 4.0.
There we go.
Oh, we got you back? Oh, Nicole, do we have you?
Can you see me?
Yeah, we got you.
There we go. There we go.
We had a little freeze there for a moment.
Hey,
no worries.
Nicole, I want to jump in here a little bit. I really liked your CIA thing, the connectedness, intelligence, and automation.
Easy to remember.
And I think the connectedness, when you said connectedness, my immediate thought was not electronic or computer connectedness. I immediately thought people, connectedness, connectedness amongst people. And you had said something in your article. You wrote, you ask, how can we use emerging technologies to support engagement and collaboration, human things, that help connected and empowered individuals achieve the organization's goals? So that's a very human thing. That's kind of the CIA from a human point. Can you give us an example of how companies maybe are doing that?
Yeah, and the surprising answer is that they've been doing it for quite a while. We're just now recognizing it under the banner of Quality 4.0. We're just now starting to label these things and be able to gather together and think about them and work on them. But here's an example for you, and this actually comes from the year 2000. I was working on a field service project. It was at a large telecom company. And what we wanted to do was we wanted to solve a really simple problem. There were field service reps. They would go out to repair a line, and the company wanted to figure out a way for them to get rid of their clipboards, right? And the reason why this problem was big is that sometimes when the field service techs would go out to do the repairs, they wouldn't keep a record of what they did. Sometimes they would have a record, but maybe they'd spill coffee on their clipboard, and so they'd get it back to the office and you couldn't read what they reported. Other times the data would just never make it back to a centralized system, so business people couldn't use it to make the business run better. And so we implemented a field service automation project, which is kind of funny now because it incorporated custom engineered hardware devices, and you wouldn't do that now. You just have people use these apps from their phones. But what it boils down to is If it's easier for you to get the information that will help you perform your job well, you're more likely to be engaged. If you know how to contribute to the performance of your organization, if you can be recognized for doing that, you're more likely to engage and collaborate. And so the kinds of things you'll see out in the wild helping us craft more efficient and effective operations are going to be things like mobile applications and the convergence of mobile and desktop and phone, all the customer touch points, things like chat bots or the Twitter customer service bots, which are really interesting because sometimes you don't realize they're not people until you talk to them for a while. And where it's going to get really interesting is when we can handle the feedback loops, when the people, the stakeholders, our customers, when everyone is engaged, and that we can use their interactions to help improve the performance of the system and meet everyone's needs more effectively.
Well, thanks, Nicole. I mean, that's two very really good answers to both of those questions. I appreciate the depth that you went in onto those. And I should say that there is a webinar coming up. So if you're interested in this topic, you might like to know that we're bringing you a webinar next week titled The Quality 4.0 Revolution, which you already know a lot more about right now. Reveal hidden insights now with data science and machine learning. And Nicole here is going to be your presenter, and I'll be your host. So check that out. The event is this coming Tuesday, October 16th at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, and there's a link to register in Nicole's article right at the very bottom there, I think before the references. There's a link out to the registration page. And you can tell from watching Nicole right now that she is passionate about this and also very knowledgeable. So be sure that you check out that webinar, because it applies to everybody. Very often, sometimes our webinars are very specific to maybe ISO 9001 or Lean or Six Sigma. Quality 4.0 really spans pretty much everything related to what you're doing in your company. So this really is something that's a little bit more broad-based. You don't have to be technically oriented to understand it, I don't believe, Nicole, right?
That's correct, yeah.
That's right. So anybody can watch this. So Nicole, thanks for joining us this morning, and we'll meet up with you on Tuesday.
Thank you. See you then.
Okay, thanks, Nicole.
Thanks, Nicole. Have a great weekend. Yeah, that's going to be a good one. Register for that one now. If you haven't already, you can register, as Dirk said in the article, or look out for your email inbox. We'll have an invite for you coming soon next week. All right, we have a couple of minutes, so I want to talk about one last story today, because this was a really interesting article. Okay. Kind of hits me right where I live, because it's something that's a kind of passion of mine, which is planning and execution. It's a passion of mine, but I don't do it very well. But that's okay. I'm aspirational.
We don't plan or execute.
That's right.
We just run around flailing our arms.
It's actually a key function of top managers at quality-centric organizations, like publishers and editors-in-chiefs.
Right.
But we know all about it. Strategic planning, answering the next magic question by consultant, lecturer, and author Andy Slifer, I think that's how you pronounce his name, considers how a rigorous application of the fundamental principles of strategy can yield positive outcomes for organizations. And Slifer's piece appeared on the Quality Digest site on Monday, a few days ago. So now, there's three of these fundamental principles that Slifer references in his piece. And the first one revolves around choice. In other words, effective organizations can't do anything and everything. They need to kind of focus their efforts on what they do really, really well. And that's a strategic choice to do that. And it shows really a high order and a high degree of discipline, too. The example he uses there is Steve Jobs and Apple. Too many products that Jobs had when he returned to the company in 1997. There was a lot of them out there. So what he did is he axed 70% of them.
Ooh, okay.
Right off the bat.
Right.
1997. He axed 70% of them, and he laid off 3,000 employees. Now, as a result of this, there was a greater focus on fewer and more innovative products, excuse me, which eventually yielded the iPod, the iPhone, and the iPad. So good outcome there. Second principle he talks about is strategy. Strategy slips in neatly between goals and plans. In other words, you can start with a goal, and the biggest of big pictures is your goal, and then you consider the strategic approach as a way to really begin organizing the questions about how you're going to orchestrate the various efforts it's going to take to reach that goal. I mean, plans then evolve to help you execute the strategy. The example there is World War II. I mean, the goal was to defeat the Axis. America's goal was that. The strategy was to take on the most dangerous foe, which was Germany, first. And the plans were to really go through Africa and Italy, then have D-Day, the Russians came from the east, so all that executed from there. The third thing he's talking about is an emphasis that strategy is what happens when strength meets opportunity. I mean, strength of that opportunity is going to yield frustration, and opportunity without strength leads to ineffectiveness. The example he uses is Procter & Gamble. Their strength was an ability to produce and market and sell really great products. The opportunity came when research and development and brand acquisitions led them to roll out a host of dominant brands and new categories. And the result is what we have now, which is a packaged goods behemoth. Strategy ultimately is all really about focus and effort. I mean, with that and a commitment to these fundamental principles that Slifer talks about, organizations really give themselves the best possible chance to succeed in the short term and in the long term.
Right.
Again, strategy is really important. I mean, we talk about it a lot here. We do new products, we roll stuff out, and you really want to do that in such a way that it aligns with what your mission is, your vision is, and that you can execute in the right way too. And I like the idea of the strategy tying in with the goals and the plans come out of that. That to me makes a lot of sense.
Right.
So many times you kind of start with the plans, which is like, very much the lowest thing you want to do. So you want to
kind of do it backwards sometimes. Yeah.
Many people do, and I think we do too. I mean, but you want to really start with the idea: what is the goal? What's the end goal? What's the strategy to get there? And then what are the plans that help you get there? That's really important stuff.
Right. Well, that is.
Well, that's our show for this week. But before we go, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Olympus. Olympus's Vanta XRF analyzers provide fast, accurate elemental analysis when screening for lead, arsenic, mercury, and other toxic metals in consumer products like toys, apparel, and electronics, all to help support compliance with RoHS requirements. Other Olympus technologies include ultrasonic flow detectors and thickness gauges, videoscopes, borescopes, industrial microscopes, advanced non-destructive testing systems, and a large selection of industrial scanners, probes, software programs, and instrument accessories. For more information, visit online at olympus-ims.com or click on the banner just below or just to the right of this video player screen.
That's right, and that is it for today's show. Don't forget about our webinar next week, The Quality 4.0 Revolution, Reveal Hidden Insights Now with Data, Science, and Machine Learning. Nicole Radziwill of Intellex, who we spoke with earlier on the show, will present, and I'm hosting, so check it out. The event is this coming Tuesday, October 16th at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. There is a link to register in Nicole's article towards the end, or keep an eye on your email inbox.
That's right.
That is it.
You'll get an invitation this week. So
for today's show.
Thanks to you all, and have a great weekend.
So long.
Bye.